pinpricks? When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
And welcome back, spooky friends, to episode 25 of Crips and Corks. I'm your host, DJ, here with my co-host and executive producer and apparently god of consequences.
It's your boy, Paul, as usual.
Lord Vishnu, destroyer of worlds, over here.
Isn't that Vishnu?
Vishnu.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
It's fine. I'll forgive you this time. Not next time, though, bitch.
You have me, so muddled. I'm literally sweating after that. I have the vapors. I have the vapors like a Victorian woman. I got the vapors.
I had the vapors once.
The vapors aren't a good thing, Paul.
I took a little too many ibuprofen. And the vapors got me.
There was that one guy that went on a date with her friend Dan, and apparently he did too much nail polish remover. And he got vapors.
Bitch, people at home.
If you know.
Right, people are gonna think he actually was doing nail polish remover.
Electrical conduit cleaner, VHS tape cleaner.
Whatever you want to call it, girl. But just know, it is not a hard drug, okay? We are not referring to a hard drug.
No, it's not a hard drug, it's just... But he
You
had
could
the
say
vapors.
It pops.
He had the vapors.
It's a little bit like popcorn. It pops.
It does pop.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Paul, how the heck are you this week?
I'm doing okay. I started working out this week, right?
Ew.
I did 2 ab workouts and somehow I hurt my hips, which is so weird.
Wait, which hip?
Both. I feel it in both my hips.
Okay, I asked because, I've done something to my left hip where I can barely walk. I'm afraid I'm going to have to get surgery.
Oh,
It's that bad.
Girl, you're 27. You can't be replacing hips at 27.
Do you remember when I had work a couple weeks ago done on my house?
Yeah.
So he came over and he was talking to me and my grandparents, and my grandmother was like, I just had hand surgery, and my grandfather was like, I'm having knee surgery in a couple weeks. And he was like, oh, these things come in threes. And I was like, no, don't say that. And I start knocking on the kitchen cabinets made out of wood. And I'm like, because I'm the third, I'm the 3.
Right.
And then it happened last week when I was getting out of the car after coming home from the office. I popped it out of place, and I'm really afraid that I did something bad to it.
Oh.
It really hurts to walk.
That's not good at all. But wait, real quick, side note, do you know why you knock on wood for good luck?
No, why?
So apparently it's an old Norse thing, I think.
Okay.
So apparently when you're knocking on wood, it's waking up the spirit of the tree to protect you. So that's why they say knock on wood when you say things like that.
Okay, but you're knocking on a dead tree in your house. Now that's sad. Oh my god.
Well, back in the day, they didn't have all that. They were knocking on actual trees.
Yeah. When trees actually existed.
Right. But yeah, I'm trying to be healthy and things and work out. And it's not looking too great because I did 2 ab workouts and I'm in pain. Getting old is not the vibe. It's not the tea. Working out like this, not. Girl, I don't know how I did it in the summer because last summer I was up in the gig, man. I was working out every day. I was sober for a whole month last summer.
You were?
That was crazy.
I was not.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm pretty sure at one point I chugged an entire White Claw while making eye contact with you.
I don't remember that, but it very much sounds like what probably did happen.
You were sober for a month last summer, but you also taught me how to shotgun a beer.
That's from my frat boy days, okay?
I know, but it's just the duality of man there.
Yeah. I'm a very complex person. Tell your friends. Speaking of complex people, DJ, how was your week?
Don't you want to do your hot guy of the month fact
Yeah,
first?
I can do Tara Yummy first.
Yeah, do Tara Yummy and then me.
Okay.
We're handling this in terms of importance. You, Tara Yummy, me.
Oh my gosh. So, Tara Yummy, right? So, she's been on the Dropouts podcast a lot lately with her co-host, Zach, which No, Zach's actually the host. He owns that podcast or whatever. And
Wait, is he the cute straight one?
yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and he always talks about how she yaps. He says she's a yapper, and you know what? She's owning it. She's owning the fact that she yaps, and you know what?
I
I
yap
think
too.
we can all take a note from Tara Yummy for that. She is taking something that has like a negative connotation, especially a negative connotation towards women, and empowering herself with it. She's like, yeah, I'm a yapper. What about it? You want to get at me about it? Yeah, I'll keep yapping.
I'm a yapper too, and I think Rose, my grandmother, would really tell you that's for real.
Right? Like in 2024, we're yappers. We're yapping, and we're taking things people are trying to use negatively against us, making them positives. We're taking a note from Tara Yummy, the icon, the legend, the feminist. She's really out here doing the damn thing. And I'm so sad, like, oh, March is almost over and I won't be able to continue talking about her. But yeah, she just continues to be an icon and she's so funny and we love Tara Yummy and I am excited to see where she goes and what I can dig up next week for you guys.
Tara, we love you. You asked me how my week was.
Yeah.
Not really good because like I got canceled on. I did not get canceled. I got canceled on for a by a man 3 times, 3 nights in a row.
Oh, see, after the second one, no.
So initially, like we made plans for Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
and then on like Monday, he was like, "Do you want to get together tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, that works." And so I ran to get ready, and then I was like, "Okay, are you ready or not?" And then he was like, "Oh, you know what? Actually, like things just got away from me. It's not going to work out tonight." And I was like, "Okay, well maybe tomorrow." And he's like, "Yeah, tomorrow will be great."
Right.
Got all ready the next day, and I was in the office, so I had to like go in already.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, I got no answer.
See, I don't fuck with that.
But like the next day, it was like, hey, I'm really sorry about last night. Are we still on for tonight? Which we had like already scheduled.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, totally. And then I was like just send me detail, like your address for when I can come over. And he goes, oh, okay. He was like, I don't know. Things are looking pretty bad right now. And I was like, what do you mean things are looking pretty bad? And he didn't answer me till like 7 o'clock and was like, I've had a really bad day at work. So can we just take a rain check?
See, that's the thing about today's culture. It is just so, it's become so socially acceptable to like cancel on people last minute because that line of communication is so like easy. It's so easy just to text someone.
You know what? It's still, as somebody who's a stickler for etiquette, it's still very rude to be late.
I agree.
It's still very rude to cancel at the last minute.
I very much agree. And it's become like a thing in today's like social media culture and just like culture in general where like people cancel last minute and it's almost like expected, like people just cancel on things all the time.
Oh my god, yeah. I have like certain friends who we make plans and I literally will like, I'll text them like I will literally text them like 2 hours. I will text them 3 hours before I have to like start getting ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that they will sit on it for about 2 to 3 hours before they respond. And I do not get ready until they respond.
Right.
Because the response will probably be, sorry, Deej.
Sorry, Deej.
Sorry, Deej. I'm not feeling good.
Right. It's very that. The amount of plans. Yeah.
And do you know what's crazy?
You know
that
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. This is just like, do you know what's crazy? Mm-hmm. The people who consistently cancel on you are the people who it's the end of the world if you cancel on them once.
See, I haven't experienced that because like I'm definitely guilty of it too. Like I'm definitely like someone who cancels on people like last minute too. Like
I mean, like I've done it before. I mean, like we were supposed to get together last night and I said, you know what, I'm really knee deep in research. The podcast comes first.
Right.
And like,
I wouldn't have considered that last minute because there was always that caveat that you might not come. But
I was very upfront, but there have been times where I've like said like, hey, I really just can't make. We all do it. Like, I'm not
Right.
saying it's a bad thing. It's when you do it consistently.
and it happens all the time these days. Like,
Oh my God,
all
yeah.
the time. It's crazy.
That and ghosting.
Yeah.
And like, I will say that sometimes you just have to. I will say like sometimes you just have to ghost.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's a time and a place. Like, if you've been talking for like 10 minutes and you're just not feeling the vibe, it's fine to ghost.
Exactly.
When it's not fine to ghost is when you've been talking for days or weeks.
Very that. Yeah. Like,
I just had a guy, so like, we were talking,
mm-hmm.
and he was like, yeah, like, I'm looking for a long-term relationship, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, great, me too. And then it very much turned into, well, what do you like sexually?
That's usually what happens. Yeah.
And I told him, and like the next day, he was like, "Are you horny?" And I was like, "No." And like he's sending me like dick pics when I said, "No, I'm not horny."
Right. They think that's
So-
automatically going to put you in the mood.
So like, I blocked him, and I blocked him on Grindr, and I blocked him on Snapchat because he had my Snapchat at that point. And I had his number too, and I blocked his number.
Mm-hmm.
And this bitch found me on Facebook. And he sent me a friend request. And he messaged me, hey. And I, like, didn't respond.
That's crazy.
I didn't even open it. Nothing. And then he goes, a couple hours later, he goes, did I do something that made you just ghost me?
Okay, that's brave. I give him points for the bravery for coming out and asking.
But mind you, we talked for like 6 hours, and he said he
Yeah.
wanted a long-term relationship. Didn't ask me out on a date. He asked me if I was horny.
Right, that's two different things. Two very different things. Like, do you want to hook up or do you want to date? Like, what's the tea?
And I still didn't respond. And then he hit me with, I really think we should just be respectful about this on both ends, and you should give me an answer.
Girl, it was 6 hours. That's like
And here's the thing.
male entitlement.
He lives near me, so like we've talked on Grindr, and like this was the 5th time where he did this, where he told me he wanted a long-term relationship, and then was just like, I want to fuck you.
Okay, so you guys did talk for more than 6 hours then.
This last time, it was 6 hours.
Girl,
But-
see, if y'all talk 5 times.
But, okay, collectively, we've talked for maybe 30 hours.
Okay.
Over 5 times, we've talked about 30 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the same thing every time.
Mm-hmm.
We start talking, I wanted a long-term relationship, send me nudes.
Yeah, that's two very different things.
And I'm just not having it. And I'm at fault because I'm the one who keeps like falling for it.
See, I do the same thing. But I feel like we both have more to say about this. This is going to be an uncorked topic.
Yes.
Because we got to get into this alcohol today. And if you want to hear us talk about more about DJ and this man and
I don't want to think about this man anymore.
and things along that nature, tune into the next episode of Uncorked and we're going to talk all about it.
So let's drink. Today, Paul, we have Prayers of Sinners. It is a 2017 red blend from Washington State.
Ooh.
One's true self lies somewhere between a virtuous good side and an indulgent dark side. In a world full of temptation, we all indulge from time to time. This red blend is for the sinner in all of us, the dark side that craves decadent, smooth, and luxurious red wine. Whether you're a sinner or a saint, we all come from the same core.
Okay, period.
And I love this label. Not only is it like, it's iconic, and then I noticed it's like falling apart at the bottom, like it's ripped.
It is a pretty label. And I will also shout out one more time. This is one of my Christmas wines I got from my stepmom. Shout out.
Two good pops 2 weeks in a row.
Nice. Get into it.
Oh, she dark.
The ASMR girlies are like here. They're thriving.
It's not spicy, like...
She does smell a little spicy. Ooh.
Like it's giving me that. Oh. I am so sorry, everyone who lives for our ASMR pours. I ruined that one.
And that's okay.
But like, it's giving me that woody smell, like the apothic flame.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. I like how the cork has the skeleton on it too.
See, I told y'all I'd make it up to you. And dribble right on my tablet. Nope. And landed on the microphone. Awesome. Cheers, Paul.
Cheers. Period. That's a red wine, bitch.
That's the red wine. It's not super dry. It's drier than I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Before we started, I chugged a Diet Coke.
Mm-hmm.
And to go from Diet Coke to this.
A good old DC moment. But how many grapes, DJ?
I'd give it 4.
I'll stick with you. Again, I'll do 4 out of 5 grapes. It's a really good wine.
It's very good. It's good. I wouldn't say it's like one of my favorites.
Yeah. That's pretty good, though.
It's good. It's definitely... Sorry, I was
As far as reds go, she's good. I'd have this with my pasta. I don't know what else you pair. I realize every week I say I pair my red wine with pasta. I just don't know what else.
You just eat a lot of pasta. Nothing wrong with that.
You can see it on my hips.
Jesus. What hips? You have... Like, no offense. You're just like this beautiful skinny twink.
Oh,
although you do have a nice ass.
Thank you.
There's like certain of your going out pants where I'm walking behind you and I go, Paul, you have a nice ass. Where do you hide it?
Jeez. I am getting those love handles though, so I need to.
Oh, me too.
That work out.
Let me take another sip and see what I would pair this with. Maybe a stew.
Oh, okay, a stew.
I don't even like
my
stew,
God.
so I don't know why I said that, but like maybe like a mutton stew.
Oh, girl. Oh, I've never had that.
You know, a little mutton stew. Mutton's a little past its best by date. Been sitting out in the heat for 5 days.
Ooh, we all know who had some of that right before they were murdered.
Jesus. All right, Paul, with that, let me tell you a story.
I'm ready. Let's get into it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she'd seen what she'd done, she gave her father 41. Andrew Borden now is dead. Lizzie hit him on the head. Up in heaven he will sing. On the gallows she will swing.
That's dark.
Welcome to part 2 of the Lizzie Borden series, The Trial of the Century.
Yo, I'm so ready for this trial.
There's a like, everyone knows Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she'd seen what she'd done, gave her father 41.
Right.
But that second verse?
That's dark. That's like that one about the Black Plague that's like Ring Around the Rosie, Pocket Full
Okay,
of
Ring
Posy.
Around the Rosie is not dark until you know what it's about.
Right. And we didn't know what we were singing about either as kids.
No.
We were just like, oh, this is fun. This is cute. Oh, just a little bop.
So, to give you a quick recap from last week, we're discussing Lizzie Borden, who was the daughter of a prominent businessman in Fall River named Andrew Borden. She was one of his unmarried daughters, along with her older sister, Emma. They lived with Andrew and his second wife, Abby Borden, in a house in a nice middle-class neighborhood, despite the fact that Andrew Borden was a extremely wealthy man and probably could have lived in the very wealthiest part of town. There was a lot of tension over money and Andrew gifting real estate to Abby's family while making his daughters live like poor people. There was a strange illness in the house in the beginning of August, leading to Abby to claim to a doctor that the family was being poisoned before, on the morning of August 4th, 1892, both Andrew and Abby were found bludgeoned to death in the house by Lizzie and the maid, Bridget Sullivan.
That was such a good recap. And you did that. No notes, nothing written down.
Thanks!
Yo, that was impressive. Good for you.
Now I have to find. So, where we left off last week, they had just found the body of Abby Borden. So, Andrew was downstairs in the sitting room. He was lying on the couch where he was taking a nap, and his face was basically bisected by the wound. Abby was found upstairs in the guest room, lying on the far side of the bed between that and a bureau, which is like a dresser, on the floor with the back of her head, like, basically missing.
Right.
Paul, we have our visual aids here.
AIDS? Sorry.
So, down here we have the crime scene photo of Andrew. And up here you have the body of Abby. And these are like some of the first crime scene photos ever taken.
Really? That's
yeah,
crazy.
because photography was still fairly new. So these are like famous pictures. Like if you look up Lizzie Borden, these will probably come up.
Okay. They'll be on our Instagram for sure.
So Lizzie found the body of her father, Andrew, called to the family maid, Bridget, sent the maid to find a doctor. Police finally came, began questioning her. Then they found the body of Abby upstairs.
Right, Lizzie's being calm.
Lizzie is very calm. A lot of the police officers don't like that. Not a huge amount of police officers showed up that day because this was actually the day of the Fall River Police Department picnic.
Oh my gosh.
So they were all like out on... they were out at a picnic and weren't available.
They're on leave.
So like whoever could be spared showed up here, along with like... Here's the thing. The Borden family maid is running, looking for a doctor. It's a small city. So, like, there were a number of people who showed up outside of the house before the police got there.
That's not surprising. People like to watch. And honestly, I'd be one of those people outside the house because I like to see what's going down, too.
So, and if you remember, Lizzie's uncle, John V. Morse, had spent the previous night with the Bordens. But he left to conduct business in town. Around noon, he returned to the house and was shocked to hear of the murders, despite half the city standing outside the house.
Oh my god. What did he think? Like, go.
He actually, like, got off a trolley, walked right past the police into the backyard, and started eating pears off the pear tree. And the police had to walk up to them and say, sir, who are you?
The level of unbothered he was.
He was, after, like, finding out what had happened, he was taken inside and shown the bodies.
It's crazy they're showing them bodies.
This is 1892. Forensics who?
Right. This is like...
CSI what?
Right. Like, and just like the level, how gruesome the sight would have been. Like, do you want to see this decapitated man? Like,
He wasn't decapitated. He was faceless.
Right, but still.
I did not pull the crime scene photos out of respect for you, but Andrew Borden's face did look like ground meat.
That's gross. And
You're
they're just
welcome.
like, come take a look, everyone.
No, but this is a family member.
Even then, I wouldn't want to see them.
I think... okay. But then Mr. Morse then spent the rest of the afternoon loitering out in the backyard.
I mean, what else are you going to do, I guess?
Both Andrew and Abby's bodies were then taken in the dining room where the autopsy was performed.
In the dining room?
CSI who?
There is no professionality.
Forensics what?
Right, that was probably a nice dining table, too.
Upon hearing of the murders, Big Sister Emma immediately returned from her New Bedford vacation, and best friend Alice Russell agreed to stay with Emma and Lizzie as the police patrolled around the house. So there is a rumor. So John Morse was an out-of-towner, so he also spent the night. There was a big rumor that he actually stayed in the guest room that he had stayed in the night previously, that very morning Abby Borden had been murdered in. This is not true. There was an unfinished spare bedroom on the third floor next to the maid Bridget's room that he stayed in.
Okay. Huh.
And that's a recurring theme in this story, is there's so much hearsay, rumor, and sensationalism from the newspaper accounts that you really have to parse through to find what's for real.
Okay.
And I'll talk more about that later.
Okay.
That night, a police officer did say that he saw Lizzie and Alice go into the basement with the chamber pot and then leave. Lizzie later returned and went to the sink before returning upstairs.
Do you want to come shit in the basement with me?
So like I said, the house had no running water. It had no plumbing. It had a sink.
Mm-hmm.
But like there was like a latrine in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, you had chamber pots.
Period.
The following day, police came and made a thorough search of the home, including of all the sisters' clothing, and taking 2 hatchets, 2 axes, and 1 hatchet head found in the basement. So this is the day after the murders.
Okay.
They do like a real thorough search.
Right. Give them the whole night to really get things together before they do the real search.
That very night, the mayor of Fall River visited the sisters to pay his condolences and informed Lizzie she was the main suspect of the murder. Could you imagine the mayor like, I am so sorry, Miss Lizzie, that your parents have been brutally murdered and that you found the body. Did you know you're the main suspect?
Right.
And I know they're from New England, and I'm doing a southern accent. You don't want to hear my New England accent.
I think the southern one's so much more fun.
Hang on. Pack your card, Howard Yard. Miss Lizzie, I'm so sorry about the murder of your parents. Did you know you're the main suspect?
Let's stick with the first one. The first one's a lot funner. Not that your second one is bad. I just like the first accent a lot more.
The first one, it's like cute and fun. The second one's just bad.
No. It's just funner. It's just like, I feel like that's what they were talking like back in the day.
On August the 8th, 4 days after the murder, Lizzie appeared and testified at the inquest into the murders. She requested her lawyer be present and was refused by the district attorney, who said that it was state law that all inquests into murders be closed door sessions. Her behavior during her testimony was jumbled and confusing, and her behavior was described as erratic, as she refused to answer some questions that were beneficial to her, but would then freely answer questions incriminating her. The district attorney questioning her was noted to be very aggressive and very confrontational. However, she was heavily medicated with morphine during the inquest.
Why didn't she have morphine?
Because morphine was considered to be a sedative back then.
Mm-hmm.
So because she found her father's body,
mm-hmm.
and she got the vapors from it,
mm-hmm.
as Victorian women did. The doctor was like, "Here, take 3 drops of morphine 3 times a day."
Oh my! So
she's giving testimony, and it's like, "Where were you at this time?" "I was looking out the window." "Were you looking out the window?" "No, I was in the kitchen."
Right, she's on drugs, girl. What do you want?
And here's the thing. My mother, who had surgeries and was on morphine, one time I was talking to her on the phone, and I was like, "Hi, Mommy," and she went, "Happy birthday." And I went, "It's not my birthday." "Yes, it is."
Right.
And I was like, "Well, how are you feeling?" "What are you laughing at?" "The pink hippopotamus told me a joke. It was funny."
Right, homegirls on
that's what morphine does.
That's crazy. And then they're sitting here wondering why she's acting crazy. It's because she's on drugs, girl.
And here's the thing.
Her father's dead.
And here's the thing. I've just been drunk. And I've been drunk and I've done something that I shouldn't have. Did you do that? Hell yeah, I did that.
Right. Wait, what are you talking about?
Comparing being under the influence of something, and the fact that she would answer questions that incriminated her but would refuse to answer questions that would prove her innocence.
Right.
I could be in here getting a slice of pizza. You could say, "DJ, go get a piece of pizza."
Mm-hmm.
And then I wander in here and you go, "DJ, are you getting a piece of pizza?" I'm not I don't have to answer you, Mom.
Right.
But then if I break a glass, "Did you break a glass?" "Yes, I did."
Yeah, no, she wasn't in the right state of mind to be doing that interview.
On August 11th, she was served with an arrest warrant and jailed at Trenton, as Fall River had no jail facilities for women at that time.
That's weird.
Women didn't get jailed back then.
Crazy.
A grand jury was convened on November 7th, and a little under a month later, on December 2nd, Lizzie Borden was indicted, and the case was to be sent to trial.
Here we go, kids.
So basically the grand jury said, yes, we have enough evidence to send it to trial.
Now, it doesn't sound like they're even considering anyone else at this point. Like, it sounds like they're just, like, only focused on Lizzie.
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
By this time, the case was an absolute sensation. Never before in American history had there been such a brutal crime, more or less, with a woman of good breeding and wealth being accused of being the murderer.
Ew, that's such a gross way to say it. A woman of good breeding. Ew.
It's gross to us, but, like, that's... I mean, she was raised by a wealthy father in a
I know what they
well-to-do
mean.
home. She was a Christian. She taught Sunday school.
Yeah, I know what they mean. It's just a weird way to say it.
Yeah. Oh, I meant to put more pictures on here. But here are, like, 2, like, newspaper coverages of the time.
Okay.
And while in jail, Lizzie got tons of fan mail every day. Not hate mail. Fan mail.
That's crazy they were doing that back in the day because, like, there's stories of, like, Jeffrey Dahmer and, like, infamous serial killers getting fan mail.
This was the first celebrity murder trial.
That's crazy.
This was the first celebrity murder trial. Like, of course you had, like, Abraham Lincoln, his assassin's murder trial, but that was, like, a political thing.
Right.
But this is the first trial that went viral.
That's so wild. Like,
this fan mail even included marriage proposals from men she had never met. Men were just saying, like, I'll marry you. When you get out of jail, I'll marry you.
what is making these men want to marry her? She potentially killed her father. Like, what? Maybe it's just, like, her upbringing. Maybe they want the money. Maybe they know the father's out of the picture. Homegirl is up to get some money, and they're
this was polarizing. Like, I think we're too young to remember, like, O.J. Simpson, but we definitely heard about, like, the O.J. Simpson trial and how polarizing that was.
Mm-hmm.
This was like O.J.
Maybe Gypsy Rose is, like, that of our time.
Well, no, because Gypsy Rose was very much, I did it.
Yeah, but, like...
Casey Anthony.
Idolizing serial
Casey
killer.
Anthony.
Not a serial killer.
Casey Anthony.
Didn't she kill her daughter? Or allegedly?
Allegedly she killed her daughter. But, like, that, like, the way, like, some people are like, she did it, she's a cold-hearted bitch. And some people are like, no, like, it was an accident.
Right, exactly.
The trial was set to begin on July 5th, 1893, not even a full year after the murders.
Mm-hmm.
In New Bedford, which was, like, the county seat. On June the 1st, Bertha Manchester was found hacked to death by an axe in her kitchen in a manner strikingly similar to the Borden murders, and a year later, a wandering Portuguese immigrant would be arrested for it.
That's wild. Not the copycat murders.
On June 5th, the trial began. The prosecution consisted of, so that's the people, again, like, that's the state.
Mm-hmm.
District Attorney Hosea M. Knowlton, who would be Massachusetts' first or future Attorney General, not the first, but the future.
Yeah.
And William H. Moody, who was a future U.S. Supreme Court Justice.
Oh, okay.
Lizzie's defense team consisted of Andrew V. Jennings, Melvin O. Adams, and former Massachusetts Governor George D. Robinson.
She had the whole governor up in that bitch?
Former governor, but she deadass had a former
Yo,
governor.
that's
Be
crazy.
Like,
she said,
I'm up in here.
let me pull all my contacts.
She really did.
That's crazy.
This murder trial was hugely contentious as the prosecution introduced evidence and the defense just argued back against it. The first point of contention was the murder weapon.
Mm-hmm.
On the Borden property, police had found 2 axes, 2 hatchets, and 1 hatchet head with its handle broken off and missing. The broken hatchet head was also covered in dirt and dust, and the police conjectured that it was done deliberately to look aged. That's this picture.
Okay. It doesn't even look that dirty, but it's also a black and white photo, so who knows?
None of these had any blood on them.
Right. If the glove does not fit, you must acquit.
And police could not confirm any of them was used in the murder.
Exactly. If they can't confirm.
There's 5 axes in the house, and none of them other were.
You know, real quick, I will note that I came into this thinking Lizzie did it. But the more I'm hearing, the more I'm being convinced maybe the other way around.
Undeterred in their quest to prove Lizzie a murderess, the prosecution then brought out the cleaned skulls of Andrew and Abby. So, after the funeral, bodies were taken to Oak Grove Cemetery for burial. They were instead taken to what was called a holding vault, and that was where bodies could be left until their mausoleums were completed if they weren't finished.
Mm-hmm.
And a second autopsy was done, and part of that autopsy was both of their heads were cut off and sent to be cleaned for evidence, along with their stomachs. But their stomachs were sent to Harvard to test for poison because remember their illness in the days leading up to the murder.
Right, yeah.
So the actual skulls of Andrew and Abby were brought in as evidence, and Hosea M. Knowlton then proceeded to take the hatchet blades and try to fit them into the holes in the skulls to prove one of them was the weapon, at which point Lizzie fainted in the courtroom and had to be carried out.
Right, imagine you're sitting there and you see your parents' skulls.
And that's this picture, like an artist depicted that moment for the newspaper.
I'd probably faint too, that's crazy.
I don't know, like, faint, vomit.
Right. I can't even imagine just like staring at my parents' skulls.
Like,
that's
okay,
crazy.
Here's the thing. My mother died. We all knew this.
Mm-hmm.
And we had her cremated. And when we got her ashes back, I could not wrap around my head around the fact that, like, the mother, mummy, the idea of mummy I had in my head was in this bronze urn.
Right.
I was just like, how does that fit? Like, I knew it was ashes, like that they burnt her corpse and put the ashes in there. But I was just like, it's because you have this idea of, like, your parent.
Right, exactly. You can't even, like, comprehend. It's crazy.
The second point of contention was Lizzie's alibi. So, remember, we talked about her testimony where she was like, I was here. No, I was here. I was doing this. Maybe I was doing this. So, in those first hours and days after the murders, Lizzie gave multiple and conflicting answers to several questions about her movements in the time leading up to the murders. The prosecution described this as her effort to find an alibi that fit perfectly and proved her innocent. For example, she claimed to be in the kitchen and dining room when Mrs. Borden was murdered. Police refuted this with a test. Abby was just over 200 pounds, and they dropped a 200-pound weighted sack in the spot where her body fell, and an officer downstairs reported that the whole house seemed to shudder with the sound of it.
Girl.
If this was true, why had Lizzie not heard it?
How are they gonna do my girl like that? They're really be like, oh, when that bitch falls, the whole house shakes.
Remember from episode 1 when, like, she was described as sturdy?
Yeah.
That's what they meant.
Yo, not them though saying the whole house was shaking. That's shady.
The police officer said the whole house. I think he actually said the whole house shook like a herd of elephants was passing by. Was his exact words I read somewhere.
That's so mean. That's crazy. I would be so sick if someone said that about me.
So the police said if this was true, why had Lizzie not had heard it herself? Also, the police...
They said, why didn't you hear that fat bitch fall? We don't condone calling women bitches on this podcast. That was
what
for
about calling her fat?
There's nothing wrong with being fat, and there's nothing wrong with... Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being fat.
Also remember the claims when Andrew was found, and they said, where's Abby? She said that she said, oh, I think Abby got a note, and she went to visit a sick friend.
Wait, say that one more time for me.
So when Andrew was found dead, they said to Lizzie, where's Abby? And she said, I think she got a note to visit a sick friend.
Okay.
The police were never able to find that note, and Lizzie said perhaps it was burnt in the stove fire.
What's stove fire?
So at the time, they had a wood-burning stove.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Even more damning was her alleged alibi of being in the barn at the time of Andrew's murder. She initially said she was going out there to look for tin to fix the door, and then said she was looking for lead to use as fishing sinkers on a planned fishing trip, which she did. She was planning, I think the 4th was a Saturday, or maybe a Sunday. But the Monday after the murder, she's planning on leaving on a vacation. And somebody said, well, what took you so long? You couldn't find the tin or the lead? And she said, well, I actually stopped in the loft and I ate a couple pears. Police said that with the nearly 100-degree weather, it would have been possible for her to have done so. They also stated that there was a fine layer of dust on the loft floor where she claimed to be with no footprints at all.
Huh.
The defense refuted this with the testimony of workmen who had visited the Borden's barn just days before the murder and were up in the loft. Therefore, there should have been footprints left over.
Yeah, for sure.
The defense also presented the testimony of both Hyman Lubinsky and Charles Gardner, who both saw Lizzie leave the barn shortly after 11 a.m. And we all know at 11:10 a.m. she called for Bridget because she found her father's body. So if they saw Lizzie leaving the barn shortly after 11 o'clock, and less than 10 minutes later she found the body, there's no way she could have done it.
Was she in the barn the whole time, though? Or did she go back in the barn and they just saw her leaving after she went back in the barn after murdering them?
I think they would have noticed her coming and going twice.
Oh, so they were outside the whole time?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I see you. I got you.
I mean, I think if you can make note of the time somebody comes out of the barn, you can make a note of whether they're coming in and out.
Okay, I got you.
However, one of the most damning pieces of evidence was provided in the testimony of Alice Russell, Lizzie's best friend.
Damn, not your best friend.
They were so close that, Lizzie had visited her the night before the murders and talked about, I'm afraid to be in this house. There's a burglary and, everyone's sick and, strange men have been lurking around it. And she also, after the murders happened, stayed with Emma and Lizzie to, help them feel, reassured.
Mm-hmm.
According to Miss Russell, shortly after the murders, she entered the kitchen to find Lizzie burning something. When asked what it was, Lizzie replied that it was an old dress that she had ruined by getting it covered in paint. Only after Lizzie was finished burning it did Alice voice her opinion that with the murder charge hanging over her, did the burning of the dress make her look guilty? Lizzie became horrified and begged Alice to know why she hadn't stopped her. This was an absolutely bombshell piece of evidence against Lizzie, as the police could not find any dress covered in blood.
Yeah.
They did find a pail in the basement with some bloody rags in it, but when questioned, Lizzie admitted that she was on her period at the time of the murders.
Okay.
And they didn't have tampons or pads back then. You would just use rags.
Right, you just bleed.
However, the defense pointed out that Miss Russell had given testimony twice before to the police and the inquest and had never mentioned the dress, only bringing it up at the trial a year later.
Girl, why bring it up then?
When pushed as to what color the dress was, Miss Russell could not confirm, but she said she thought it was blue and thought Lizzie had worn blue the morning of the murders. Both Lizzie and Emma refuted that was the dress she wore the day of the murders and subsequently never spoke to Miss Russell again.
Yeah, it sounds like homegirl's being crazy for no reason. Why all of a sudden is she coming out of nowhere?
And some people were at one point they questioned the seamstress who made the dress.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, oh yeah, I did just make a dress for Lizzie. And it was a very expensive dress. And Lizzie was like, no, I didn't burn that dress. I burnt an old calico dress.
Exactly.
And she was like, I still have the dress that I wore the morning of my parents' murder.
Period. People, who knows why homegirl did that.
And somebody, I heard it on a podcast, somebody said Emma and Lizzie would never burn an old dress. But according to Alice Russell's own testimony, Lizzie took it out of a kitchen pantry where it was stored and said, Emma, I'm never going to wear this again. Do you think I should get rid of it? And Emma said yes, and didn't blink as Lizzie started burning it. Which shows that it was common that they would just burn old dresses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
And here's the thing. Yes, that thing costs money, but do you know what else costs money? Coal and firewood for that stove.
That's true.
And their father was cheap. Her father was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
What was not entered into evidence was Lizzie's testimony. This was struck from evidence. So from the inquest, her testimony at the inquest was struck following the testimony of her doctor as to the amount of morphine that Lizzie was on in the aftermath of the murders. So it was basically testimony giving under the influence. And also the court said it was absolutely ridiculous that the district attorney refused to allow her to consult her lawyer.
That's
against the Constitution. It's
exactly.
in the Constitution that you have the right to a lawyer. Yeah, you have the right to... Or is that the Miranda rights? I know this happened before the Miranda case. But I'm pretty sure, like...
I don't know. I didn't go to school for that, so I don't know.
I studied the Constitution. I should know that. Also not entered into evidence was Lizzie's attempt to buy hydrogen cyanide. Remember when she tried to buy poison the day before the murders?
Mm-hmm.
Because she said she wanted to clean a fur?
Mm-hmm.
Judge Justin Dewey struck this from evidence as being too remote in time to have any connection with the murders. All drug tests on the dead Borden stomachs and the food in the house came back negative.
Must have been that meat.
Lizzie's defense also gave a long list of household uses for prussic acid, hydrogen cyanide, and the Victorian home was a treasure trove of poisons which could kill you. Wallpaper dyed with arsenic to give it a vivid green color, makeup made with lead, and don't forget lead pipes.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's literally so much in the Victorian home that could kill you.
That's crazy.
Gas. I know they didn't have gas, lighting. They had, oil lamps.
Mm-hmm.
But, gas lamps could kill you if you forgot to turn them off.
Very that, yeah.
So, all this led to, on June 20th, 1893, the jury was sent to deliberate and returned an hour and a half later with the verdict that Lizzie Borden was not guilty.
I get it. I'm here for it.
She was found not guilty on 3 charges of murder.
Mm-hmm.
Do the math, Paul. How many victims are there?
There's only 2. So who's the third?
They charged her for the murder of Andrew Borden, the murder of Abby Borden, and the combined murders of Andrew and Abby Borden. What? They added an extra charge just for the hell of it.
That's crazy. What? That's wild. You can't do that shit. That's crazy.
One juror stated that the group was unanimous in their decision almost immediately. They just got in there and they were like, she's not guilty.
Right,
But they sat around for an extra hour out of respect for those who did not see it that way to make it seem like they deliberated hard.
That's understandable. There were a lot of eyes on that.
Oh my god, this was the first national court case.
Right.
The jurors actually had their portrait taken at a local photo studio and had it framed and presented it to Lizzie as a gift.
I don't know how I feel about that.
And it's still, that picture still hangs in the Borden house today.
Jesus.
Upon leaving the courthouse, Lizzie told reporters she was the happiest woman in the world.
I mean, hey, she doesn't have to worry about her dad being mean and being crazy and things. She gets the money. She's not guilty.
Later that year, Emma and Lizzie purchased a 7-bedroom mansion on the hill, that fancy rich neighborhood in Fall River, which Lizzie named Maplecroft.
That's a cute little name.
Despite her acquittal, Lizzie was shunned by the Society of Fall River and even by her church.
Dang, not the church.
That church that she was so dedicated to and she taught Sunday school at.
See, that's the thing. I won't get too political or too much into it, but it's funny how quickly people will turn your backs on you. They actually export that in Young Sheldon. Homegirl, the mom in Young Sheldon, she was a church-going, God-fearing Texas all her life.
And then the son got
the girl pregnant
and they turned on her.
Right, they fired her and everything just because her son had a kid out of wedlock. People turn your backs on you quicker than you can say. I don't know what people say, but...
Faster than you can say axe murderer.
Exactly, period.
When asked by a friend why she didn't take her fortune and leave Fall River, because her father's worth $10 million today.
Mm-hmm.
And she got half of that. And also, let me tell you this. Despite the fact that Abby died first, meaning everything she had went to Andrew, and then Andrew died, so everything went to the girls, both Emma and Lizzie gave they went through Abby's will and gave everything that Abby had left to her family to Abby's family.
Oh, that's nice at least. Hey, do right by the family. That's good. That's cool.
Now, Abby's family definitely said that they were unhappy about this, but
Yeah.
there was tension. So,
What can you do, you know?
but basically, when asked why she didn't leave to go to somewhere where she could live anonymously, she said, "When I'm found innocent, I want to walk downtown and look into the eyes of my friends who have cut me all these years."
Yes, let those bitches
And what
know.
cutting is in high society, when you would be walking, you would acknowledge someone by kind of bowing your head.
Mm-hmm.
But when she would walk downtown, people would just ignore her. They wouldn't even look away.
That's crazy.
Over the next decade, she would be dogged by accusations and rumors of shoplifting, of kleptomania, and of lesbianism.
Hey, that last one, why not?
In 1905, Lizzie began to invite a number of actors and other theatrical performers to Maplecroft, including the famed actress Nancy O'Neill, who she formed a friendship with. That same year, Emma departed Maplecroft to make her home with friends due to the parties Lizzie threw in the home. It is unknown if the sisters ever communicated again.
That's so weird.
So a lot of people say, like, oh, Emma definitely found out that Lizzie did it, and that's why she left.
Mm-hmm.
However, remember, Emma was a really, really reserved person and didn't like people.
Mm-hmm.
And Lizzie was an extrovert.
Right. And she was having all these people over.
Yeah,
like...
so it's probably that Emma just said, okay, I'm fed up. And also, so Emma's like in her 50s.
Mm-hmm.
She's been taking care of her sister for the past 40 years.
It's a long time.
Maybe she just went, you know what? I can't take this. I didn't want this house. I didn't want the parties. I'm just going to go live with my spinster friends.
Period. That's understandable for sure.
That same year, Lizzie would change her name to Lisbeth Andrews Borden. So she was born Lizzie Andrew Borden. She changed it to Lisbeth Andrews Borden.
That's interesting.
Kind of like for privacy.
Right, right.
Lizzie remained in Maplecroft, and she would be taunted by the local children who would ring her doorbell nonstop, egg her house, throw rocks and gravel at her windows, and stand outside singing their nursery rhyme around her.
That's crazy. That's awful.
Lizzie maintained a luxurious lifestyle, including purchasing one of the first motor cars in Fall River.
Good for her.
She was one of the first people in the city to have a car. She also gave copious amounts of money to charities benefiting animals and children anonymously.
That's nice. Good for her.
Mostly because, like, if she said this is from Miss Lizzie Borden, they probably would have said no.
Yeah.
Whenever she was out on a drive and she saw children, she would have her driver stop and she would hand out candy to them.
Okay.
Laura Vestal, whose parents had an eggs and milk business, they had chickens and a cow, and they would sell eggs and milk, would deliver the eggs and milk to Lizzie at Maplecroft and stated, "Miss Lizzie was the nicest lady I ever met. Always greeted her with homemade cookies for her and her friends." And this really gives you a sense of what Lizzie's later life was. Lizzie asked Laura to please tell the other children she was a kind woman and to not be afraid of her. And Laura did, and the other children told her that they didn't believe her. Could you imagine, like, a grown-ass woman saying, "Can you please tell your friends, like, I'm just a nice lady, please don't be afraid of me"?
No, that's awful. Poor Lizzie. Honestly, she's like the first famous one of the first famous people to suffer the actual effects of fame, like negative fame.
Lizzie contented herself with her beloved pet French bulldogs and canaries, and would even feed the squirrels on her property, and would travel in her later years to Boston and New York and Philadelphia. In 1926, Lizzie underwent a painful surgery to remove her gallbladder, which she never quite recovered from. In the following year, Lizzie died of pneumonia at Maplecroft at the age of 66. 9 days later, her sister Emma died in a nursing home in Newmarket, New Hampshire. Lizzie left an estate of over $5 million in 2023 values, including real estate in Fall River, 2 cars, a jewelry collection, and stocks. Her servants were all super faithful to her, and a lot of the money that she left in her estate went to her servants. And to her chauffeur, she left one of her cars. And this was a rich person car. She just said, like, yeah, take my Buick.
Right. So,
Two of the biggest bequests in her will, she left $678,000 to the Fall River Animal Rescue League and $11,000 for the perpetual upkeep of her father's grave.
okay.
Her funeral was not public and attended by few. She and Emma are now buried in Oak Grove Cemetery, just feet away from their parents and their stepmother. To this day, no person other than Lizzie Borden, has been arrested in connection with the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden.
So if Lizzie didn't do it, who did that?
I'm so glad you asked that because my next bullet points are a list of possible suspects.
Okay, I'm ready to hear this.
Other possible suspects include Bridget Sullivan, the maid, who was the only other person in the house with Lizzie that day. And it was basically her testimony of Lizzie's whereabouts in the house which really made Lizzie seem guilty. Need we remember that I heard Lizzie laughing at the top of the stairs?
Maybe she was framing her. Maybe.
And she never saw Lizzie.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I heard someone I thought was Lizzie laughing at the top of the stairs. But then remember, she let Mr. Borden in, and Mr. Borden went into the dining room, and Lizzie talked to her father in there. I'll get into my conspiracy theories later. John Morse, the uncle who was staying at the house with the Bordens at the time, despite being a relative and business partner of Andrew, they did not get along, and John was really bitter over the treatment of his nieces Lizzie and Emma.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they could have been living a far more luxurious life, and Andrew was like, no. Have not, one not.
Right.
So he gave an account of his day, and 90 minutes are totally unaccounted for.
That's enough time to do all that.
And remember, he arrived at the house, walked through the crowd, past the police, and into the backyard. And the police had to be like, who are you? What are you doing here?
Mm-hmm.
At which point he recounted a weirdly detailed alibi of being on a trolley on which he knew the names of both of the horses pulling it and all 6 other passengers on board. How often do you get on a bus and know the name of the driver and all the other passengers?
Right. That's a little weird. A little spooky.
William Borden, or Billy Borden, the alleged bastard son of Andrew. So it's said that Andrew had a secret love child, William,
Mm-hmm.
who was a butcher in town. And that he was supposedly very bitter of his lack of an inheritance from his extremely wealthy father.
I'd be bitter too, honestly.
A Portuguese immigrant who was arrested in respect to the Bertha Manchester axe murder, just days before Lizzie Borden's trial. But he claimed he was not yet in the country when the murders had happened.
Well, he obviously was.
Emma Borden, despite the fact that she was in New Bedford, later researchers found that she did have enough time to take a train to Fall River, dress as a man, commit the murders, and return to receive the telegram informing them of her of them.
Okay, that's interesting. That's new information.
And lastly, a mysterious man who was seen lurking outside the Borden house in the days before the murders. Many neighbors attested to the fact that they saw him.
And hey, rich people have enemies.
And Andrew was a shady character.
Yeah.
Paul, before I discuss what you think about the case and who I think did it, I want to tell you about the legacy of the murders.
Okay.
Because this story has been retold numerous times. One of the most famous was Agnes DeMille, who is the famous ballet dancer. She wrote a ballet entitled Fall River Legend, and she actually rewrote the ending to have Lizzie be found guilty and hung because she thought Lizzie was guilty. She literally rewrote history. In 1956, Alfred Hitchcock, on his television show called Alfred Hitchcock Presents, presented the story in an episode called The Older Sister, where he reversed Emma and Lizzie's ages and presented a theory regarding it. And that was the theory that Emma committed the murders.
Okay.
And that basically Lizzie said she did do it, but didn't really try to prove who did because Emma did it. In 1975, ABC presented the film The Legend of Lizzie Borden, starring Bewitched star Elizabeth Montgomery. Did you ever see the show Bewitched?
Yeah.
And that was the music that I played over this week and last week's intros.
Okay.
After Montgomery's death, it was actually discovered by a genealogist that she and Lizzie were 6 cousins once removed.
That's crazy.
You probably know this one. Lifetime produced a film called Lizzie Borden Took an Axe, starring Christina Ricci.
I did not know that.
You did not know that. And it was so popular they actually created a follow-up short-term series called the Lizzie Borden Chronicles, which recounted her life after the murders. And in 2018, a film called Lizzie, starring Chloe Sevigny and Kristen Stewart and Bridget Sullivan, was released, and this presented the lesbian theory.
Oh.
So one of the biggest theories of how did Lizzie do... So there were multiple people who testified that when Lizzie was seen the day of the murder, she was pristine, not a hair out of place, no blood on her.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think the 1975 movie was the first one where this really took steam, was that Lizzie stripped down naked to do it and put her clothes on over top of her bloody body.
Oh, that's crazy. That's quite the theory.
And I will talk about more of that later. Paul, what do you think? Who do you think did it? And why?
I don't know. There's just so many, things, so many people who could have done it. There's just so much going on, and so... I don't know. There's just so much, like you said, hearsay, and, now that I hear, Emma had enough time to do it, and this guy had enough time to do it, and the maid had enough time to do it, honestly, at this point, I don't know. How about you?
I don't know who did it, but I am firmly of the belief that Lizzie did not do it. And I've held this opinion for years. I actually wrote a college on this in paper. I wrote a college on this in paper. I wrote a paper on this in college.
Mm-hmm.
So I just mentioned the naked theory.
Yeah.
This was a time when women wore multiple layers of clothing. They put on a slip, and then a corset, and then a corset cover,
Mm-hmm.
and then a petticoat, then an underskirt, then a skirt, then a blouse, then a jacket. That's 8 layers of clothing, not counting bloomers and stockings and lace-up boots.
Mm-hmm.
The murders were committed within 60 to 30 minutes of one another.
Mm-hmm.
How did Lizzie, after killing her stepmother, get her clothes back on, talk to her father and see Bridget, and then take them off again, put them on, and then within 10 minutes, have them back on and be without blood?
Right. It's nearly impossible.
Also, to go back to this picture of Lizzie Borden, you can see she's fairly fair-haired.
Yeah.
She has either a dark blonde, maybe a light brown colored hair.
Yeah.
Blood's gonna show up in there.
I could see that, yeah.
All those curls, there are so many places for you to have blood
Mm-hmm.
in there. Also, the forensics... So, because Abby was standing up, they were really able to tell how she was hit.
Mm-hmm.
Someone significantly taller than Abby had to have struck her.
Right.
Lizzie was not very tall.
And with that much force, too?
So now people say, with hatchets, it's very easy to get a momentum going.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So I'm not going to go there with the physics, but here's the thing. You're 6 foot, right?
I'm 5'10".
You're 5'10". I'm 5'8". I'm 2 inches shorter than you.
Mm-hmm.
If we're standing face to face and I hit you with an axe, it's going to be different than if somebody 6 foot hits you with an axe.
That's very true. Also, you thought I was 6 foot? Oh my gosh.
I did. The bloody rags. People always talk about the dress.
Mm-hmm.
Lizzie and Emma both maintained it was just a dress ruined by paint.
Mm-hmm.
Alice Russell could not say what color the paint, what the paint looked like on it.
Exactly.
She said, I thought it was dark red or brown.
Right, and why not bring it up before? Why wait until a year later, bitch? She's fake, and I don't trust her. Fake friend.
And the bloody rags in the pail in the basement. This is what really got me. I'm not going to name this very famous podcast, but one very famous podcast that's hosted by women. They were like, oh, Lizzie said that those were her period rags, and the police were just like, okay, we're not going to ask anything further. Because men are grossed out by periods.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not taking... If she says she's on her period... Okay, here's the thing. I don't have a period. But I highly doubt that if you are on your period that you bleed as much as 2 hatchet murders. I'm sure it could be something akin to that when you look at it. But I mean, the amount of blood and brain matter. And how it, even if she washed herself, how would she get rid of the bloody water?
That's true.
After Andrew was found, she was alone for probably a collective 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm on your side. Like, I don't think she
What
did.
and you said before, all of this evidence seems like they're just trying to pin it on Lizzie.
It really does sound like that.
And then the later accusations of shoplifting, of kleptomania, of lesbianism. I think it all goes back to those first few minutes after the murders when Lizzie was calm and she wasn't reacting how those male police officers thought she should have reacted.
Exactly.
And I think that's what this entire thing comes back to, because everyone's like, the only thing everyone in their testimony could agree was, well, Lizzie was really calm. She was her father's daughter. I'm sure, like, her going like, Bridget, you need to get a doctor. That's Andrew.
Right.
That's Andrew's teaching, like, you need to get a doctor. You need to go get a doctor in case my father's still alive.
Right. No, and people, like, different people react differently in situations like that. Like, she was in shock.
When my mother died, and my mother was not murdered, but when my mother died, it was a shocking event. I was very young. My brother fell apart. I, like, receded into myself. I mean, when the EMS told me, the first words out of my mouth were, I would like to meet the team so I can thank them for all that they've done. Those were the first words out of my mouth after I found out my mother died.
That's very you-coded.
It is, but that's just like... But my brother was like a sobbing mess.
People react differently.
So... I think Lizzie's innocent. I think she's really maligned. I think this is just another case of the patriarchy trying to tell women how they should react. And I mean, like, everyone's like, well, she had more than enough time because the police didn't, like, search the house for a day or so. Like, yeah, and when they did, they just looked for evidence to pin, like, by the time they were doing a search, the mayor of the town already said, you're the main suspect.
Right, exactly.
There wasn't enough evidence yet to prove that. It was just like, it was literally some police officer saying, like, I don't like how she's acting.
Very that. We need justice for our girl Lizzie. But it's really unfortunate. We'll never truly know what happened.
No, we will not. I mean, I will say there is I found that, so I first found out about the Lizzie Borden murders when I was like in middle school. My mother bought me this wonderful graphic novel called Lizzie Borden and the Tragedy of Fall River. I believe that's what it's called. You can find it on Amazon now. It's this great, like, comic book. And it has so much information, and it's just, like, so great. And it led me down this rabbit hole initially when I was in middle school into the case. And then I went back down in college when I wrote a paper about it, and then again for this. And there's just such a wonderful community of researchers into the Lizzie Borden crimes. One of my biggest sources through this was the Lizzie Andrew Borden Virtual Museum and Library. And they have a forum, and it is the most polite internet forum ever. It's just like, I've heard this. Have any of you heard this? I have not heard that, but let me tell you what I heard. I have heard that, and I've researched it, and it is false. Really? I'm so glad I asked. Thank you for letting me know that was a false accusation.
Sounds boring.
It's so nice in this world, like, of QAnon and, like, Twitter fights. It was so nice and refreshing. And I know it's, like, a bunch of old people, like, at their, like, Microsoft, like, boxy computers, but it was, like, so nice to research.
That is nice.
Now, after 2 weeks of talking about this unexplained cold case, and all of a house with 2 brutal unserved act murders, you really ask yourself, how could it not be haunted? Well, you're going to have to join us next week for the 3rd and final part of our Lizzie Borden series.
Or maybe we'll make them wait another week, because we do have special guest coming up. We're not really sure when we'll release that one, or if we'll release these consecutively, or maybe we'll make them wait for the finale. We'll see.
We'll see, but please join us in the coming weeks as we delve into Lizzie Borden Part 3, The Hauntings. Paul, now that we're all done, smash or pass Lizzie Borden?
Lizzie Borden? Smash. Why not? We'll give her a good old go around. Why not?
I mean,
take her a good old stroll around town.
Yeah, I would definitely court her for a day. I'd take her out for an ice cream and a walk.
Yeah, a nice little bop for the kids.
Like,
Why not?
She probably never went on a real date in her life just based on, like, what her father was like.
Yeah, probably not.
And people say, like, oh, like, obviously she didn't get married because she was kind of a short, ugly bitch. And I was like...
Oh, damn, DJ!
I mean, she was not the most beautiful woman of the era, but she's not bad looking.
She's really not that bad looking.
And, I mean... This is a black and white photo, but that Laura Vestal, who delivered Milks and Eggs, said she had the most beautiful blue eyes of any woman she had ever met.
Oh, that's so nice.
So on that note, we are going to put an end to this episode of the podcast. Please like, subscribe, and comment wherever you listen to us. It really helps us. And please have people join the cult. Invite them to listen if they like paranormal comedy, two gay best friends being idiots with one another.
Right, whatever this is.
Please, if you have personal stories or episode suggestions, email us, cripsandcorks@gmail.com. Please follow us on Facebook, Crips and Corks, on Twitter, @CripsandCorks, on Instagram and TikTok, @CripsandCorksPod. Mm-hmm. Paul, where can they find you?
You can find me at my good old Instagram at Paulember, Paulember, or my good old TikTok at Paulember, Paulember. And remember, folks, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
If you would like to find me, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at @TheRealDeechPowers or on Twitter @RealDeechPowers. And as always, watch out for those hatchet murderers. Don't get accused of murder. And keep your crips tight.
And your corks loose. Bye!
Bye!
Oh, I wish I had a few ibuprofen.
Jesus, Paul.